It is exactly 8:41 a.m. This is News and Views on Salam Media. We're now going to be talking with Thembisa Fakude. He is the CEO of the Mail and Garden newspaper and also a senior researcher at AFRASID. We are going to try and understand the G20 Summit with Thembisa. Assalamu alaikum to you, Thembisa. Welcome to the program.
Welcome, Salam. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure talking with you. So let's kick off by understanding what is the G20, who's in it, and what happens at these summits.
G20 is a group of developed nations. 20 of them are part of the G20, and the main objective of it is to promote and encourage economic development. So they've got this rotational chairpersonship, which moves from country to country. This year was India, next year it's Brazil, 2025 it will be South Africa.
I also hear that next year they will be inviting President Putin, and there won't be a threat of him being locked up. He wasn't present, obviously, at the summit. His second in command was there. How do you view that?
Yeah, it won't be there next year, but it won't be there in 2025 as long as...
beg your pardon, 2025. Yep.
2025, it's South Africa's 10. So again, it won't be able to come to South Africa because South Africa is, again, a signatory to the ICC, and it has ratified the Roman Statute. So Putin won't be able to come as it was the case with the BRICS.
Right. The significance of having...
which is in Brazil, it might happen.
Yeah. Okay. The significance of having the G20 right after the BRICS. Just a few days in between the two different summits. You had the BRICS and now the G20. Would similar issues be raised? I know that the few countries that are not part of BRICS, but is it significant at all that they have it a few days apart from each other? Thembisa, are you there? Hello? Okay, let's see what's happening with the connection there. Thembisa, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Okay, did you get my question?
Yes, I did.
Please, can you respond?
Okay. There are two separate platforms, but they have some of the common issues that they will tackle moving forward, and one of that is the just energy transition. We heard that they were talking about just energy transition in India, and that was also a discussion in South Africa. But what BRICS has, amongst other things, was particularly from President Xi Jinping of China, was the development of Africa. Not the case or the discussion at the G20. Which was important in India was the inclusion of AU as a permanent member of the G20. So those are the discussions. So the agendas are totally different. G20, because it's much more bigger and it involves countries from various parts of the world, they tend to have a much more wider agenda, not zooming in on any particular region. Whereas BRICS, because it's small, South Africa and other countries that feel sidelined on international matters have got a chance to lobby the bigger countries such as Russia, India, and China to push their political agenda. In G20 is a bit difficult to do that. But again, the lobbying opportunities are much more greater on G20 than on BRICS.
Let's look at the issue under Donald Trump. The US clashed with the rest of the group on trade, climate, and migration policy. Now, with Joe Biden, he's promised a return to multilateral cooperation, achieving a new global agreement on corporate taxation. I'm wanting to know how significant that is and how it will impact on smaller nations in Africa, for example, and other third world countries. We also understand that tensions have continued to grow as high and low income countries have increasingly diverged on major issues. Uh, for example, climate change, economic development for low income countries, and also the ongoing fallout from the war in the Ukraine.
Yeah, well, I think we all hope that President Joe Biden is re-elected. Not to say that is better in terms of U.S. involvement in the world, but is better than the choice that we have at the moment, which is Donald Trump. So if that's the case, the ambitions and all the items listed in the agenda of the G20, including climate change and others, and the revival of multilateralism, might just be promoted once again. But nobody knows what will happen in the United States elections if Donald Trump comes back. We are back to square one. So that's the only concern that many countries, particularly smaller countries within G20 and the world in general, of course, is worried about, because Trump is not a pro-multilateral person. He believes in nationalism with prioritization of countries, including, by the way, people such as Narendra Modi of India, who are also a very staunch nationalist politician. So we hope that what Joe Biden has brought forth as the intentions and objectives of G20 will be realized, and at least the other countries within the G20 will begin to push for that agenda. But as for the smaller nations within the G20, of course, it's a bigger platform which enable them to lobby and be much more proximate to other bigger countries in terms of pushing forward their economic development.
So, Thembisa, let's look at you raised the issue of Joe Biden being re-elected. And I am digressing here. Do you think he would be re-elected, or rather, if the Democrats do come in again, that the Democratic Party would decide to replace him with someone else, probably someone younger, someone who is a little more dynamic, because he does seem to be getting on in years pretty rapidly, isn't it?
Yeah, but there is no other choice at the moment. It looks set that Joe Biden is going to be the candidate, or the Democratic candidate, to the next elections against Trump. So that's almost done, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. So Joe Biden is going to be going ahead. And hopefully he will be bringing with him. I mean, a lot of people are hoping that he goes back into the White House, particularly the Ukrainians, who have been receiving a lot of support from the US because of Joe Biden. And we've also seen him. He's one of the first people who proposed that the AU becomes part of the permanent member of the G20. And his politics on climate change and Africa and South Africa in particular, he's very close, or he enjoys a good relationship with President Cyril Ramaphosa. So as long as he's around, you are likely to have the improvement of relations between the United States and South Africa, amongst others.
Let's look at the superpower China. We understand that a multinational rail and shipping project linking India with the Middle East and Europe has been announced on the sidelines of the G20 Summit. And obviously, this is seen as a challenge to China's economic ambitions in the region. The corridor, which would include India, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Jordan, Israel, mind you, and also the European Union, would help boost trade, deliver energy resources, and improve digital connectivity. Huge. That's really a huge announcement. That must have been, agreed upon pre the summit. They couldn't have done that deal within a day or two of this summit. But where and how, is the situation going to play out with China being excluded from this deal? And I know
Well,
geographically it's just not possible because they're far north. They're in the north. So, that's that one question. And then what's happened about, there have been talks in the past about the Silk Road or the Silk Route. Would this overtake that?
no, I don't think so. I think China's Belt Road Initiative will always remain. It was announced first before anything else, and China Road Belt Initiative is much more big and huge than what was announced on Saturday. because it goes from China all the way to East Asia. In fact, as I said, resuscitating the Silk Route. And other people are saying it looks at even going into the hinterland of Europe.
Mm.
So the Road Belt Initiative is a very big project, which again will mean that China will have relations with a number of countries, because if you're planning to build a road and a rail through these countries, you must have some diplomatic relations. So that's what likely is going to happen. I don't think there's any project at the moment that will surpass what China plans. Besides, China's got the resources, and it already started. By the way, I went to visit the port where this road rail initiative is going to be started in Chongqing in China, and they're all set, to start with this business. So I don't think anything proposed bilaterally by any or any countries at the moment will be much more effective than what China is planning to do.
So it's not in direct competition with what China is currently rolling out now.
No, no, certainly not. This is China's foreign policy.
Mm.
They are hell bent at doing it, and it's going to overlap with whatever bilaterals countries will have, because China continues to negotiate the thoroughfare, in other words,
Mm.
in construction of this rail through countries, and that is way advanced at the moment to be derailed by any bilaterals. They are moving steam ahead in terms of them pushing for this road belt initiative.
Just one or two more questions before I let you go, Thembisa. What have been the main points of contention at the summit?
Well, the main point of contention was the waiting on Ukraine, the
Mm.
condemnation of Russia, because the waiting, even Ukraine has criticized that the waiting regarding the war in Ukraine was a bit watered down. They wanted a clear condemnation of the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, but it was a broad stroke statement which basically encouraged national positions on Ukraine, while at the same time emphasized the right of countries to self-determination and not being invaded by other countries. So in other words, they borrowed from what the United Nations Charter said in terms of countries' independence. So it was all covered, and people were covered. It did condemn, didn't condemn, but it mentions that countries have got the right to sovereignty, and what we see happening in Ukraine was a violation of that, and that is because of what the United Nations Charter says. So it was not a specific utterance from the G20. What the G20 said was, we will stick what individual countries or members of the G20 have declared in their own individual capacity, but there's not going to be a collective position condemning Russia.
Do you think, and this is definitely my final question, the death of the head of the Wagner Group, Prigozhin, would that make any difference at all with this war on the Ukraine? Because these were mercenaries, a huge group of mercenaries helping Russia in this war. Do you think there's going to be any change now that he has died? Or will just, another leader step into his shoes and continue unabated?
Well, I think it's going to be changed. The fact that it's gone, it means that the tactics and how the strategies were implemented by the Wagner Group have to be revised by whoever leader comes in. Because Yevgeny Prigozhin was the founder. So in other words, whatever happened within the Wagner Group, notwithstanding what Putin has said, was his own dictate. So with him gone, you are likely therefore want to find a new way of doing business, including professionalizing it, because it was a loose organization before. And you might find, you'll probably see more and more Putin's influence in terms of how it's run and in terms of how it markets itself, particularly in African countries. But you all should be worried, because, these are the type of institution that thrive on lawlessness and political instability. So there is no business for them as long as there is stability. So they will make sure that there is instability so that they can send their own people to do business. And this is what is worrying. And that's why I've said what I said about even BRICS, that, they have a gangster within BRICS, a person who has now, said that is going to be changing the leadership of Wagner Group, etc. I mean, it's a very sad situation that it continues. While they were having a BRICS meeting, by the way, Yevgeny Prigozhin fell from the sky because they
Yep.
bombed the aeroplane that he was
Mm,
in. The same man who was attending the BRICS summit. So, you can see that it's got no total disregard for even BRICS itself. So the
mhm,
Wagner Group's advent in Africa should be condemned, and I don't think we should celebrate it. We're seeing these flags being flown everywhere. And that's what they're waiting for. They're waiting for this, dislocation of power and corruption and havoc in these countries so that they can come in with their solutions. And now, what guarantees do we have that they're not going to be part and parcel of creating the havoc in Africa?
yep. Worrying indeed. And of course, we will pick up on this the next time you and I talk. There'll be lots of interesting developments, undoubtedly. As always, a pleasure talking with you, Thembisa Fakude. You are the CEO of the Mail and Guardian newspaper and also continuing as the senior researcher at AFRASID. Thank you indeed for your time. Much appreciated. Salaam alaikum to you.
Wa alaikum salam.
It is exactly 8:57 news and views on Salam Media, and inshallah, in a minute or two, we'll be joined by our news correspondent. That, of course, is I Jadwid. He'll be bringing us the bulletin of the morning. Please stay with us.